Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today is Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. And I wanted to just start by briefly following up with some of what we discussed yesterday, right? As it relates to, hey, Stronghold Digital Mining, the announcement was made, 5,000 newer Bitcoin mining machines are being purchased. It's about 600 petahash of Bitcoin, processing power, so to speak. What, if anything, is that replacing? Is it replacing anything at all? Is it simply going to supplement what already exists, or what's going on? So bear in mind that in August of 2022, the decision was made to return a substantial portion, if not kind of like the overwhelming majority, really, of the Bitcoin mining machines that Stronghold Digital Mining had both plugged in and operational, as well as several thousand that had yet to be plugged in. So that was as part of a significant deleveraging effort, which Stronghold Digital Mining was very proactive in attempting to accomplish, again, beginning, sort of like towards the middle of 2022. So we ended up with about 1.7 exahash of Bitcoin mining infrastructure, about 19,000 machines that were directly plugged in and that were operational after all of those other Bitcoin mining machines were unplugged and returned to the lender. So of those, say roughly 19,000 Bitcoin mining machines, a substantial, portion of those machines were, MicroBT Whatsminer M30S machines, Whatsminer M30S Plus machines, and those are very decent, good machines. There's, nothing inherently wrong with those machines, right? Quite reliable, good performance, but heading into a halving, perhaps not the sort of the best foot to put forward, so to speak, as you go into that transition of a halving. So I am under the impression that the 5,000 newer Bitcoin mining machines that were announced that were going to be purchased, that are being purchased, that have been purchased, all right, and that are scheduled for delivery now in January, those machines will essentially, if my understanding is correct, will basically be replacing machines such as, for example, like a MicroBT Whatsminer M30S or M30S Plus, machines like that. Which, again, if you think back to when all those other Bitcoin mining machines were returned in August of 2022, there was a core set of Bitcoin mining machines that Stronghold Digital Mining directly owned and operated and had plugged in and running. Well, now those machines, a portion of which, right, it kind of makes sense to make an effort to upgrade those machines. And so that is what these approximately 5,000 machines that were announced yesterday will essentially be going to replace, or at least that's the impression I'm getting based on, publicly traded, publicly available information. If you look at the 10Ks and kind of like read between the lines in terms of some of the regulatory filings, things like that, you can start to kind of piece this all together. That's the impression I get as to what's going on. We'll leave it at that. And it makes sense, by the way. That's not, when I say let's leave it at that, I'm not saying, hey, I disagree with that. No, it makes sense. It does. So the next thing, right, that we are awaiting is any news or information as it relates to the Karbolith deployment schedule, first at Scrubgrass and then hopefully at Panther Creek, right? And so the question that remains is, of the money that was raised in the private placement that was announced, I believe, on December 26, 2023, about 8.5 million of that, roughly $15 million, has been spoken for. Of the remaining funds, what, if any, will be used to accelerate the carbon capture initiative, right? The carbon capture project. I have even wondered if Because this is something that Greg Beard, right, our chief executive officer, during the Q3 2023 carbon capture, not only just the investor presentation for Q3 2023, but it really was sort of the unveiling, right, of this carbon capture initiative. Greg kind of speculatively commented, hey, what if we placed some Bitcoin mining machines inside the Karboliths to really help generate some heat, which would in turn help with the so-called chimney or stack effect, and really, get a bunch of air to sort of like, go through that beneficial use hash so that we can capture as much carbon as possible. So, as to what do you do with Bitcoin mining machines that may not necessarily be the most optimal for mining Bitcoin, but that nevertheless can mine some Bitcoin and that will produce some heat, I wonder if there's an argument to be made that part of the design process for these Karboliths will include some number of Bitcoin mining machines inside each Karbolith to really help with that stacking effect process. The downside is that, if I'm not mistaken, one would have to compute how much electricity I think is being used to power those machines, and then that gets subtracted from sort of like it plays into the equation as to how much carbon benefit you're creating, because you are arguably, I guess, using electricity, which in turn, I guess the argument is, hey, that uses some carbon, right? So, you have to sort of then subtract any carbon that you're using to achieve the carbon capture process from the overall amount of carbon that you're claiming to capture. Now, first of all, if having some Bitcoin mining machines in a Karbolith dramatically speeds up the process of capturing carbon, then I think an argument could be made, hey, it's probably a net benefit to do that because you'll be able to capture more carbon more efficiently. Maybe the rate of absorption, it will be even higher than 12%. So therefore you're, hey, if you have to subtract a little bit because you're using Bitcoin mining machines inside the Karboliths, the math might work out so that it makes a lot of sense to do that. Bear in mind, the weather here in Pennsylvania is not always very nice at the end of this week. The state is scheduled to get some snow, followed by some rain, and then temperatures will moderate. That does not sound like conducive weather to capturing carbon from an ash-like material that during the investor / analyst day presentation in New York City, if I'm not mistaken, I think the process of water getting on this ash was described as it turns into like a turtle shell in terms of the hardness. Now, I may be conflating where I heard that as between the investor day in New York City and the Q3 2023 investor presentation, but nevertheless, I can certainly cite that comment because it resonated with me. And truly, when I first heard about the carbon capture initiative, the thought that crossed my mind is, well, what happens when it rains? What happens when it snows? How do you move this material into place so that the carbon capture process can continue, rain or shine, snow or shine, every single, month of the year? So again, these are some of the questions that we don't really have clear answers to. Certainly once, the Karbolith technology makes its way to Panther Creek, I'll certainly have, I think, a better sense of how that's maybe handled. But for right now, we don't know. I'm not sure that I have a clear and satisfactory answer as to why our stock price continues to slide. I have noticed that a lot of companies in the publicly traded Bitcoin mining ecosystem, their share price has been, their share prices have been quite weak as well. So I think this is just kind of a function of the market dynamic at the moment. I did see earlier today, NASDAQ was down 1%. Technology shares were down. Stronghold Digital Mining, for better or for worse, tends to get clumped in along with other Bitcoin mining companies, right? We get clumped into the technology sector. And I'll tell you, yeah, it kind of sucks when you see the stock slumping. It can be quite nice, right? The argument could be made if a 50 to 100 multiple, which seems to be commensurate with a lot of technology stocks, is applied to our stock, right? Or to shares of other companies in the publicly traded Bitcoin mining ecosystem. I've yet to see that, but, that's maybe the one, bright side of being lumped in to the tech sector. All right, we gotta be patient. We gotta stay positive. We gotta try to be great. And I think we're gonna hear something from Stronghold probably sooner than later as it relates to the carbon capture initiative. We had this presentation in New York City on December 12th. So I would hope and anticipate that by January 12th, or very soon thereafter, we'll get an update as to what's going on, what are we doing, how are things going, and what does our deployment schedule look like for Karboliths. So with all of that said, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.